6:30.
Okay, thank you. So I'll call this meeting of the Stockbridge Planning Board to order on October 19th. Thank you all for joining. The first item of business is to approve the minutes of our last meeting, October 5th, which were distributed by Jennifer some days ago. Are there any, or can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I approve minutes as presented.
Is there a second? Second. Now, is there any discussion of the minutes? Hearing none. Jennifer, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Bill?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Wayne?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
And I don't think, is Carl here? I don't see him. No. Okay. That's it?
Okay, thank you. Next item is the amendment to 37 Mackinac Road special permit. And I see Rob Ackroyd is here. Thank you for joining us, Rob. I want to mention a conversation I had with Mike Canellis this afternoon about this. Technically, it is within the purview of this board, if we choose to do so, to ask the applicant to resubmit a new special permit application. But it's also within our permit to acknowledge that this is a relatively minor amendment and it can be dealt with as an amendment and not as a new application. I think we should deal with it as an amendment. I mean, I think all of us saw it and saw what was involved. But is there anybody who feels differently? Okay.
I'll just make a comment along those lines. That was a concern of mine, Bill. I don't actually think that this is a minor change, but that said, I'm not sure that since it impacts more, the impact is more from the lake, across the lake and from the north end of the lake. I'm not sure that advertising it and going through the public hearing process will necessarily accomplish anything. So while I don't think the changes are not substantial, I also don't, I'm fine with proceeding and dealing with it tonight.
Okay. Rob, Carl, did you hear that? Hi. You're
You're
muted.
muted.
Sorry, just barely.
We're talking about, and I'm not sure I don't think you made the site visit, 37 Mackinac?
Yes, no, I wasn't there.
Okay. We're talking about whether the change that is part of the amendment requested is substantial enough to call for a brand new special permit application. We have the discretion as a planning board to agree that it is just an amendment and it's not necessary to ask the applicant to start a new application. And before you joined us, everybody present agreed that it was an amendment, not that we did not need to ask for a new application. Do you agree?
I don't see a problem with that, I don't think. No.
I mean, you didn't see it, but it's replacing wood steps down to the bowl with stone steps, essentially.
Oh, no, I did get the paper, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you're okay with an amendment?
We vote.
I guess so.
Carl, I think it's fine. I mean, if it's
Yeah.
handled as a public hearing, it goes through the process of being advertised and abutters are notified. But since really the impact is more from the lake and other sides of the lake, like the western and north side of the lake, I'm not sure that accomplishes anything.
Thank you.
Okay. it's just more boulders in the bowl.
Oh, well, we're still going to discuss it. It's just
Yeah,
a question of.
good.
of,
Okay.
Yeah, we're still going to discuss it. It's just a question of whether it's handled as a special permit all over again or not.
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's not do that.
Jennifer reminds me that Mike Canellis asked that we go on record as agreeing that this is an amendment, and that we do not need to ask the applicant for a new application. So can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Well, just to be clear, we're just voting on that this is how we're handling it procedurally, but we're not voting on the actual.
Correct.
Okay. Yep, I'm fine with that.
Can you call the roll, Jennifer, please?
Bill,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Marie,
Yes.
Nancy,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Carl.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, good. Now, Rob, would you like to walk us through the amendment, please? And you can share, you have permission to share the screen.
Very good, thank you. It says you've disabled participant. I need you to enable it so that I can share my screen.
Can you do that, Jennifer? Or is that
TSB.
Steve?
It should,
You're now the co-host. Looks like you can do it.
So can you folks see the screen?
Yes.
There you go.
Very good. So what you'll see here is a quick sketch. This is actually Stockbridge Bowl. These dashed outlines are the steps as they exist currently. Those old railroad tie timber steps, they come up. There's a small landing, and then there's two more additional ones here. I think everybody that went to the site visit saw these. What I'm proposing to do is replace these timber tie steps with stone so that they will no longer degrade. They will be there a permanent fixture, and also look a little bit nicer and be a little bit more easily navigable getting up and down to the lake. And then to the extent that we need to stabilize the embankment, there's already some boulders that are there now. We will add on an as-need basis additional rockery boulders to stabilize the embankment. And then we will plant the exposed areas with low maintenance perennials and preferably pollinators. So this is a real quick plan view sketch. This is what it would look like if we were sort of if it was rendered. So we're hoping that it's going to look like something along these lines. I think it's an improvement both visually and environmentally from what exists currently. And I wish I could tell you more, but that's really the project in a nutshell.
Well, just out of curiosity, I mean, who are you proposing will do the masonry work?
We have a couple potential contractors on board, given the fact that it's challenging to find people.
Right.
They're both South County. One is Jared Havens from Havens Lawn and Patio, who's done work for us in the past. The other potential is Jason King from Jason King Landscape. Both are from South County. Both groups will work with us on a number of other projects, and we feel more than comfortable that they'll do a wonderful job. I should also mention that this project needs to go in front of the Conservation Commission as well. We have not been in front of them, although they do have the application. And at that time, when we discuss it with the Conservation Commission, which is a week from tonight, we will at that point discuss the issues of sedimentation and erosion control, silt fence, and barriers of that such nature. I also just want to make it clear that there's been no decision rendered by the Conservation Commission as to whether this project is accepted or not. I have had conversation with the chairman of the commission to make certain that he received the package and gave him a very brief verbal overview of the project. And that's as far as that has gone with the Conservation Commission. So we still need to present this in front of that particular board and get their blessing as well.
Have you considered making those? I know that the association, the Terrace Association is working on steps for their common area, and they're making their steps, they're including permeable surfaces in theirs. It's a similar terrain. Have you considered that?
No, we've not considered, no, we've not considered the steps to be permeable, no. But we do have a landing in between that will be permeable. So really, we're not considering the steps to be a permeable surface.
And what size are the, it looks to me like from the plan, which is, by the way, kind of difficult to read. I don't know if you submitted a large plan, but I didn't get one. What size are the Goshen stones?
So they're going to be somewhat at the mercy of the quarry, but we're going to try to keep them within the confines of what already exists on site. So as you can see, again, these hashed lines are what exists. We're going to try to confine these stones within that same width.
And what is that width?
I believe they're probably 5 feet in width, Kate. So our goal is to probably go with stones out of the quarry. And as you know, we can get what we can get from the quarry, but I'm hoping to do stones that are probably 3 by 5s, meaning they'll be 5 foot in width and 3 foot wide, and they'll be stacked upon each other coming up the hill.
And the boulders, what size are those?
Those boulders are going to be trying to match what's there currently. So probably something in the, again, 3 to 4 foot in sort of diameter, if you will, small enough that they can be placed with a small excavator and not have to bring in a large machine.
3 to 4 foot, it's pretty big, and there's 17 of them?
This is a representative sketch. I think we're going to use only what we need to. It's going to be really difficult for us to determine the exact number. So
Where are the boulders from?
There are some on site, and then we have access to a few from our one of our landscape contractors' other projects.
And where are they from?
Berkshire County. They're from assorted projects around Berkshire County.
Yeah, I'm just sort of like guessing from, it's a little hard to tell right here on the screen, but I mean, I'm guessing that those boulders are going to be more like 2 foot, than 4 foot. But I mean, if they start getting like big, it begins to become a bit of a how much of an impact are we trying to make here? So
Yeah, I mean, 3 to 4 feet, wow.
Rob, aren't you planning to add boulders as necessary that are similar in size and shape to the ones that are already there?
Yes, we're going to keep things in scale.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've all seen those boulders and none of them looked outsized, or almost all of us have seen them.
Essentially replicating.
Precisely.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused because you just said 3 to 4 feet, and that's not what's there.
Well,
Wouldn't
those are
it
the
be in
steps.
diameter would be around, so it's really only like
I wouldn't call those boulders anyways. I would call them rocks.
rocks. Yeah,
I think the operative point is they will be similar. The ones that are there will stay there,
I'm not sure.
and any additions will be similar in size. And all of us except Carl actually saw the ones that were there, and I wouldn't call them boulders either. They're just rocks, and they're not outsized or especially stand out in any other way.
I did have a question. Are the Goshen stones, are they slippery when they get wet?
Potentially, so the Goshen stone is a quarried stone, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with. It's used quite frequently. So I wouldn't say they're slippery. There's probably certainly going to be parts of them that are a little bit more slick than others when they're wet, but it's a natural, it's a natural rock phase. We're not bringing in thermal finished bluestone or anything like that. We're bringing in what we believe to be an organic, somewhat indigenous stone.
Bill.
So I can tell you, there's certainly much more stable from a traversing perspective than the railroad ties that are there.
Yeah.
That can be.
Wayne,
Question, Rob. The, looks like you're placing the stones
slightly further away from the water than the timbers were, is that correct?
Yeah, I think we're gonna try to give a little relief from the shoreline somewhat to get, to stand back a little bit. So the last step will be a step down onto the dock.
So when you do the actual excavation, is there protection other than wattles or erosion that go on the land? I mean, is there anything in the water that protects, or is it just on land?
It's just on land, and let me, that's a great point, Lynn. Let me just chat about that briefly. So we are going to be removing the timber ties that are there and essentially replacing it. So, the term excavation, I wouldn't say we're going to be excavating an awful lot of material. We'll certainly be regrading a little bit and setting these stones in place of where the timber ties were. But in the space between that last tie/stone and the shoreline of the lake, we will certainly be adding, silt fence and wattles, and we'll wattle both sides of the silt fence, meaning the house side and the lake side. So it'll be sort of sandwiched in between.
Thank you.
I guess I still remain, and despite Bill's comment, Rob, I still remain concerned about the size of the boulders. Would you be willing to, and we also have a question in chat, what color are the boulders?
I'll be honest with you, it's very difficult. We could set parameters on the boulders, and Kate, if there's a size that you don't want us to exceed, we can certainly discuss it and work around that. The color of the boulders are going to be typical granite, igneous rock that we have in Berkshire County.
But the question is, are they going to be white? Because we've seen some white boulders go up around the lake, and many people have commented on how unattractive they are.
No,
They will not be white?
they will not be white.
Okay, I guess I would favor something darker gray, in that range. And then the size that I think would be appropriate, I think Carl mentioned 2 feet, no bigger than 2 feet, and that seems to me like it would be reasonable.
So just so we're clear, Kate, is it 2 feet of exposed material or a 2 foot rock entire with only a certain part of it exposed? And when you measure 2 feet, how do you measure it, Kate?
I guess 2 feet exposed.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need to stipulate that what they're proposing to do is use the stones that are already there, which are not white, and bring in similar size stone, also not white. Do we need to be any more particular than that? I just don't see why we have to say 2 feet. There are probably some stones there that are 2 feet, 4 inches. Are we going to ask them to remove them? I just don't see the point.
No, we could just say, to keep what is there. I agree with that 100%. And then for new stones being added, not to exceed between 2 and 2.5 feet. I think that's very reasonable. Look,
I think it's more reasonable to say any new stones will be similar in size, roughly similar in size
Yes.
to what's there. And to bring out a tape measure to figure out whether this is 2 feet, 4 inches or 2 feet, 8 inches is ridiculous, in my opinion.
well, thank you for that input, Bill, but some of the stones were quite large. And I think that probably, given that these are new stones, we're not asking them to remove the larger old stones. I agree with you there. I think that makes sense for them to stay. But the boulder landscaping that has taken place has not been, has drawn attention, I will say. And I think it's reasonable to take we have an opportunity here to take a more cautious approach to make sure that what happens is attractive from the lake side, the north side of the lake, and the west side of the lake. But I don't think that this should become a sticking point. I'm going to leave it there. I'm not really interested in arguing the point with you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments of Rob?
I guess I'd sort of like to know if, Rob, if you're willing to go with, something in a more reasonable size as opposed to some of the other projects that have happened on the lake in the range of 2 and 2.5 feet. That's going to be a decider for me in terms of how I vote. So if you can let me know if that's something you're willing to go with and feel you can go with, I'd like to have that information.
I don't want that to be necessarily the opinion of the board.
I don't think it is the opinion of the board. You can vote against this, Kate.
I'm asking Rob what he's willing to do and if he's willing to.
And I'm saying he doesn't need to do that.
Right.
We're telling you that the size of the boulders or the rocks, they're not boulders, that are there are not outsized. Any new rocks brought in will be compatible with what's there. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, everybody else here, that is sufficient and we don't need to get a tape measure to figure out what rocks are too big or too small. You can vote against this. Please do.
I'm going to ask that you please be a little bit more courteous towards me.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead.
This is John Hart. I grew up on that lake literally from the age of 5, as did some other people. And the view shed from the lake has changed over the years. A really good example is the White House at the south end of the lake. Now, this project happens to be a behemoth all in itself. And we're happy to entertain whatever they're going to do at the Concom. And I am not speaking for the Concom here. I just want that clear. But as a private citizen, I noticed today that they were putting on, blue siding on the lake side of the house, which it's kind of a dull color. It's not obnoxious.
John, that is not relevant to this discussion. I'm sorry.
Where the heck did you come from?
It is not relevant to this discussion. Does anybody else have any comments?
Discussion, because I'm talking about the boulders and I'm talking about what their final landscape plan is, Mr.
We're not talking about that either. The final landscape plan or the siding on the house. We're talking about these rocks.
I
That's
know
all.
that, but if they come out and they go and they dig up limestone rocks and they put them on the front lawn, it's just going to be another piece of the view shed that is not particularly acceptable. That's all.
Are you gonna do that, Rob?
Boy, I think if most people know me, I would pray to God that you don't think I would do that. No, I guess to put an end to that, no. Well, no, we will not.
Any other concerns, John?
Not at the moment. We'll see them at the Concom.
Okay.
So
Any other
Rob,
comments from?
I'm trying to get a sense of what, just to inform my vote.
So Kate, let me just try to give you a sense of what we're trying to do. So as a landscape architect, one of the things that is extremely important to me is the sense of scale, right? We talk about it frequently with my clients. I try to speak about it periodically, to various boards. So we're not going to do anything on this project that is what I would consider to be out of scale, visually unsightful from any aspect of either the lake or from the shore. So if you feel that you really need to confine me to some dimensional requirement, which is based on, quite frankly, I'm not sure what, then I trust you that I assure you that I can work around that if that's what everybody wants to do. The other reality of it is that I mentioned before that all these disturbed areas are going to be planted with pollinating perennials. And the reality of it is you're probably not going to see any of them from anywhere. But if it's critical to the board that we limit the size of the rocks used to stabilize the soil at 2.5 feet, I can work within that.
I already have a sense it's not critical to the board, but I do want to inform my vote. So,
I hope-
if
hopefully
you, when you say, 3 to 4 feet, are you talking about the final product being maybe, that what shows of the rock being something around 2 feet?
Quite possibly, Kate.
Okay,
You have to understand that what you're asking is an incredibly difficult thing to answer. And I
yeah,
understand.
no, I get it, Rob. I
Really?
guess maybe the better question is, are you familiar with some of the other boulder landscaping projects that have
No.
happened recently on the lake?
Thankfully, no, I'm not.
Okay, well, just want to make sure we don't have a repetition there.
You should take some comfort in the fact that I have no involvement with those other boulder landscapes.
Well, it's hard to know, we get these pictures and everything looks really nice, and then it happens, and then the comments start coming in from near and far.
Any other comments or questions from the board, members of the board?
Make a motion, we approve this amendment.
I
as
think we have,
proposed.
Second.
so Jennifer, this is not a public hearing officially, or is it? Do we have to
It's not
close?
officially a public hearing, but it is an amendment to the special permit. So we do need a motion to accept it or not.
Right. I just wondered whether we had to first to
Close.
close the public hearing.
No.
We do not. Okay. So you've made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Denny, do you have any comments?
On this?
Yes.
No, we don't.
Then Jennifer, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Bill,
Yes.
Gary,
Aye.
Marie,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Kate, Carl.
Okay.
Carl?
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know.
I don't know what he-
We don't know what he
said.
said.
What,
I don't.
what was your vote, Carl?
Carl,
Well, I said aye.
you did. Okay, thank you. And Kate?
Aye.
Okay.
Rob, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Rob.
Have a good evening. Thank you, folks. Take care now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Keep it in scale.
The next item on the agenda is to discuss the bylaw and potentially the Cottage Era Estate bylaw. I invited Jeff Lacy to join us around now. I think we have a minute or two perhaps before he joins. Just a couple of updates. I did ask Jeff to give us some dates. Remember from our last meeting, we talked about inviting him here to drive around, walk around the town and see what we're made up of. Some of the projects that could be deemed, extensive developments and otherwise. And he's agreed to do that, but I don't have dates yet. So when I get them, I will send them around. And as I think, Kate, you mentioned at the last meeting, I think we'd have to do this as a open public meeting and allow whoever wants to be part of this in some fashion, be part of it. And we'd have to take notes and, correct, Jennifer? We have to take minutes.
That part I don't know.
Not you.
I won't be there.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean, when I looked at you, I didn't mean that you would
No,
take the
I
minutes. But somebody would take the minutes because,
Bill, that's great. That's good. That's good news. I think it's a useful idea. I really do. Yeah.
yeah, I think we all agree it's a good
Well, I
idea.
just have a question though. So is it going to change anything about his proposal? I mean, I guess that's a question for Jeff, but you can walk around and drive around and look at the various projects that we have. But will it change anything about what he's proposing? I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong, but, what we have is what we have. And I think everyone understands what it is he's proposing. I just truly wonder what advantage there is to riding him around and
Yeah,
It's a
but I
fair,
mean, I don't know. I would go so far as to say that, like, not everything that we have in town that's taken place over the last, couple of decades is ideal. And then also if we go like look at neighboring towns, I think that, there's some things that you don't have to go very far, where like, maybe that's not what's good for Stockbridge. So, I don't know. That's, I mean, I don't, I think I think facts are good, I mean, I enjoyed, our meeting with Jeff, out in Shutesbury, et cetera, a lot. And, and I think we need to like look like at what sort of goes on here, because those are the fights we have, honestly. I mean, and have had, and would hopefully not have too many have too many in the future, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
I'm not a big one for a fight, so.
Nor am I. Oh, my God.
I think, Wayne, it's a good point. I don't know that it would result in, significant changes to the bylaw that he's worked on.
And I agree with that. I mean,
But I don't rule it out. I do think there's value in his seeing what this town is like and the makeup of residential areas, and where 2 and 4 acre zoning start and end in a few parts of town, so that he gets a sense of that. And among other things, the one reason for doing this is I think it would help us as a planning board to defend the use of Jeff to the town, to be able to say that he's actually been here and he's actually seen what we're like and how the town is made up. I acknowledge that he may or may not change his mind on any of these things, but I think to go to the town, whether it's in a survey or in, ultimately in town meeting, it would be nice to be able to say that this consultant actually knew something about the town other than having lunch at the Red Lion Inn. Do you?
I did today. It was excellent. I'm sorry I'm not at the meeting. I apologize. I should have come down to town hall. I whatever.
It's okay. You're here virtually, and that's good enough.
In doing the historical presentation part, the Cottage Era estate, it might be helpful to be here to kind of see what we're talking about. He's heard so much about, Desisto School and
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, that might be
Yeah.
semi-helpful, but I agree with Wayne that it's not going to make a lot of difference in what he writes up for us. It's not really going to change. But I think it would be good for him to see, especially the Cottage Era thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be good for him to, first of all, just frankly, I don't think we've done any worse in some of our developments than they have. So, there's that. But then I also think it would be interesting to see how this planning board, who would be overseeing this as it's drafted currently, how would you have done things differently, say, at the Stone Ridge property?
I would like to see him focus on the Cottage Era properties first, because they're the ones that would be developed.
I think we could do that. Yeah. Start with a few Cottage Era properties and then maybe take a look at Stone Ridge. Stone Ridge is what's now called Campion Farms, right? Is that right?
Correct.
Off of Glendale Road?
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. He should see a place like that and comment on it.
Well, I think it would be good for the board to comment and say, based
Yes.
on what's drafted, what are you going to actually do differently?
Yes, fair point. I think it would be worthwhile to take him in there.
Hey, Jeff is on.
Is he on yet?
Jeff is on?
Well, yeah, his little, yeah, it says he's there.
He does? Oh, there he is.
Here he is.
Jeff, how are you?
Hi, Jeff.
Hi there.
We're just talking about potentially getting you out here to, as we discussed at the last meeting, to see some of Stockbridge and visit potential cottage era estate locations and a couple of developments that it would be interesting to talk about with you in the town. So as I mentioned, I think in an email to you yesterday or today, if you could give us some dates that work for you, we'll run them by the whole board and get something organized, whether it's later this month or in November. It would be good to get it before the snow flies. Although the snow has flown in October here, so does that make sense?
Fall is good because the leaves go away and you can see things.
Good point, yeah. It's not too cold yet.
I'll throw one date out that might work for me would be November 7th. I'm not sure if y'all have your calendars, but
Is that a Sunday?
it's a Sunday.
Oh, I think I'm not here. I
Okay.
would hate to miss that. But yeah, I'm coming back from a thing that day. But I mean, that's just me. So
I see other people checking their
November
calendars.
7th,
Does it sound
yeah.
feasible?
Sorry, what day was it?
The 7th, Sunday, 7th of November?
Of what day, Jeff? Of what month?
It's
November.
Sunday, November 7th.
Patrick, you seem eager to step in. You're muted.
oh,
Yeah, look, I don't want to make a big deal of this, but we're 18 months into this project and we spent like $15,000 or $20,000. And it kind of shocks me that you're telling me that Jeff hasn't walked the town with you guys yet. Why wasn't that the first step before we got through 8 drafts of writing this thing?
I agree.
We're doing it now. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Better late than never.
yeah.
Does November
And
7th?
another thing is, twice it's come up that Jeff should take a look at the DeSisto plans. Well, Joel sent you those plans, Jeff, and my understanding is that the town sent you those plans too. So do you have them or not?
Oh, I know them by heart.
Okay.
Yeah.
That give you enough time to advertise?
November 7th.
I could probably draw you that plan freehand. I've looked at it so much.
Yeah.
Right. So when someone references those plans, I want you to speak to them since you do have them.
Sure.
November 7th.
I'd go for November
Sunday.
7th. I can do November 7th.
Who does that work for? We know it doesn't work for Carl. Anybody else?
What about the 6th? Is that possible, Jeff? The 7th is Sunday.
This is bad for me. I'm away all weekend that weekend.
Yeah, the 6th, I'm supposed to lead a field trip for my own planning board. So I'm kind of tied up all afternoon.
What about the following weekend?
Good for you, Karen.
I could do the 7th.
You can do the 7th? You can do the 7th?
I can do the 7th.
There's no way we couldn't do it on something other than a Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, really.
But if we do it during the week, that's a problem for you too, isn't it?
Is Saturday available?
Is there another Saturday available, like the 13th?
The 13th is possible.
That would work for me.
Me too.
13th at after 1.
At 1?
How long do we think this is going to take? How many properties are we going to visit?
We haven't talked about it, but I think if we start at 1 o'clock, that's probably later than we should. I think if we keep the price of your lunch below $20, we can take you to lunch. Not easy to do in Stockbridge, but we'll manage. Could you be here earlier?
Yeah.
Of course.
But I have a farm that I have to deal with first before I can leave. So, yeah, I could probably be there at noon.
But even just driving around town for 2, 3, could be 4 hours. I mean, we you see a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a big place.
Yeah, I've been to Stockbridge before.
Yeah.
I've driven all through that area. I used to work out in Sheffield and West Stockbridge and some of those towns back in the day. So I'm not entirely unfamiliar with your region.
No.
So does the 13th?
Well, before we commit to it, I think we need to have some kind of focus. I mean, if we're just going
absolutely.
to wander around.
No, I agree.
I mean, can we decide tonight what exactly it is we're going to do? Because if we're going to be wandering around for 4 hours, I got better things to do. I do. But if we're going to go and look specifically at different properties that we feel are important for Jeff to see, I think that's different, but I am not going to wander around with no clear-cut mission for half a day.
Absolutely, Wayne. I mean, there needs to be an agenda and a plan, and I would say that the things to look at would be some of the larger developments that have taken place over the years, Stone Hill or Stone Ridge or Pine,
White Pines?
Yeah, exactly.
White Pines?
Sorry. And then also, like, I think doing a little drive-by of some of the more visible great estate properties.
That should be first.
Exactly. And I always bring up Tanglewood because they're like, they're a great estate. But Marion Fathers, I mean, but I mean, it's not, I mean, everything's 10 minutes away. So it's not like.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. How about if we, Jennifer, are you there?
I am.
Hey, so do we have a meeting on November 2nd?
We do, yes.
Okay, so how about if we give some thought to this and then as a board, as a full board, not just like 2 or 3, at the next meeting, we agree to finalize an agenda.
Well, exactly. But I mean, an itinerary, if you will, I mean.
Yeah, an itinerary.
Yeah.
Wrong word. Sorry, Carl.
No, that's.
Here,
Have we-
just let me introduce this. Unless you're posted as a meeting and there's a quorum there, we can't be having discussions. You can't drive up to a place and one of you say, well, I like this one. That's deliberation and that's.
We are posting as a meeting.
We will post it. We will post it as an open meeting
Okay, all right.
so that we can have those conversations.
Well, if you post it, you can, but you could also get the whole town tagging along with you.
We recognize that that's a possibility. I doubt we're going to have the whole town or even.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know how interested anyone else is in all this.
I mean, we might have half an hour or half a dozen people who tag along or show up at various sites and want to be part of the discussion. But I don't think it's going to be a big crowd anywhere.
So there's an important question from Patrick on the chat, which I will read out loud. There are a bunch of questions on the chat. Patrick is asking, how will you navigate private property permissions? And
I don't know. I don't know that we need to really do much more than drive by, honestly. I think we can get a sense of a lot of this from the street, you know? I don't know that we need to get invitations to go visit Highland.
Well, you're not going to drive in, you're not going to drive by White Pines. You're not going to drive by DeSisto and get a feel for it.
You're
I
right,
think
you're right.
that's unrealistic. I don't think he gets a feel for it if we're going to do that.
No, that's a good point. Okay, just.
And here's a chat comment that says, shouldn't he go see Elm Court in Old Stockbridge Road?
Yes.
Barney,
Here's a list. I don't know that we need to wait till the second to finalize this, but just, I've taken notes and I realize that a couple of these are private and we'd need permission, which I assume would be given, but who knows? 37 Interlaken, Stone Ridge, which is both of which we drive into. White Pines is open. Elm Court, we'd need permission. The gate is often closed, I think. Eden Hill, the Marian Fathers, we can drive through that.
Yeah.
Tanglewood, I don't know that we can go beyond the parking lot. Probably not. And I'm not sure we'd get permission
It's usually open.
for
I
walkers.
think everybody knows Tanglewood. I would suggest, as a contrast to some of the large properties, currently the draft bylaw includes
We weren't interrupting each other.
20 acre properties. So I think it would be good to have a 20 acre property on the list.
Okay, which is private.
Oh, we should check out, Cherry Hill and Cherry Street there. And like, I mean, that's the swans of like, more land than God. And,
Definitely.
I don't know what's going to happen there, I mean, I'm not sure like what's still relevant over at, Shadowbrook. Just trying to think what else is really kind of on the map.
Wayne, what was your comment?
Question for Jeff. Jeff, I asked before you came on, I don't know if you were on yet. In driving around to some of these properties that we're proposing, do you envision that your draft or proposal will change based on what you see?
My draft is going to change based on what you tell me to do, what you vote as a 7-member board. I'm not going to go make unilateral changes based on a field trip. I'm going to be able to have maybe some better conversations with you after that. But ultimately, the bylaws are I'm the technician and you guys are you're the ones that know the town and you're the ones that have to put it forward at town meeting. So I'm going to take my direction from you.
So much of it is what your vision of the bylaw would be in your initial presentation of it. I don't see that it's changed a great deal since that beginning proposal. And that's why I asked that, because we have been able to make minuscule changes, but we really haven't. And so I'm just asking, that was a good answer. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know. Wayne, I appreciate your concern about wasting our time or wasting, Jeff's time essentially. But the fact of the matter is, I do think that, like revisiting some of the things that have happened over the years in town, and seeing what's been successful and what maybe hasn't, might be a good reminder to all of us, actually. So apart from not being available on the 7th of November, I'm all up for like, a little bit of a drive around town. I did that for Historic Preservation Commission, years ago now, but it was sort of it was sort of an eye opener. It's like, oh, like look at this beautiful place that we live in, and look how it's been organized, and I think that's something that that we all need to keep in mind as we go forward in terms of proposing something to a town meeting.
Folks, let me add quickly, if it gets complicated with scheduling and having a lot of people there with different opinions and like who's going to narrate this site and who's going to narrate that site, if you came up with a list of properties that you agreed on as a planning board, and then with a short description of what it is and what I should be looking at, I'll take that list and go out and look at every one of them myself.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to go about it, Jeff.
and I'll take pictures and make notes, and then we can talk about them.
I don't know. I wouldn't be sorry to come along for the ride. I mean, it's a nice time. It's a nice time of year to be in Stockbridge, and it's good to see. It's good to see how the community is faring.
Well, please don't interpret this as a way of getting around the open meetings law, but a variant of what you just suggested, Jeff, would be to have three of us accompany you.
No, you can't do that.
Right.
We're not deliberating.
That's like your subcommittee.
Well, it's not a subcommittee.
And how are you going to arrive at those three people the same way you arrived at the Shutesbury visits where
I hadn't thought about it, frankly. I'm just trying, Kate, I'm not trying to finesse open meeting. I'm trying to make it, I'm trying to suggest something in between a big crowd potentially and Jeff's idea of going all by himself. And I tend to agree with Carl that there's value in having at least some of us. I mean, we go by in threes to site visits and we
But
can.
everybody is welcome to attend. I would suggest that we leave it open to the full board, advertise it as a public meeting, and agree that the discussion is just going to be very minimal, that we're just viewing the sites and that this discussion can be subsequently.
Honestly, I think that might be reassuring to, to the community that like we're doing a certain amount of due diligence in this respect. I mean, it might be a little bit more work, but I mean, I don't know. What trouble are we going to get into?
Yeah, okay. Well,
I guess if it's between the 7th and the 13th, I would strongly prefer the 7th.
Yeah.
The 13th, I may have to do something with one of my daughters that.
On the 7th, then you don't have to worry about me. So we all have less of a crowd. It's fine. Don't worry. I mean, listen. I just invite. I think it's worthwhile to survey the terrain.
But if
well, the 7th again.
But
go ahead,
Carl,
Jeff.
If you don't go, you should definitely have input into where the rest of
Don't worry, I'll have input. I promise you.
Yeah.
So the 7th, back to the 7th, that's a Sunday. That's a problem for you, Carl. It may be a problem. It's a problem for you too. And the rest of us go. 5 of us. Kate, are you able on the 7th?
I'd much rather do the 13th. I don't feel like we need more than 3 hours. So to me, that seems like if you can do it, Jeff, that would be my preference. And then we capture everyone.
But I'm totally happy to contribute suggestions about itinerary and like some notes about some of those properties and things. It's hard to remember everything, but certainly I think we have to use our heads together to kind of figure out what's critical.
So is it easier, Jeff, on Sunday, the 13th?
Saturday
the 13th.
Sorry, Sunday, the 7th. What time would work for you?
I could get there by late morning.
And the 13th is essentially you're saying that's out for you.
Probably the day I'm gonna take one of my kids to the equine affair. We go every year.
Yeah.
Well, I thought earlier you said you could do noon or 1.
On the 13th?
Yeah.
Oh, I've been thinking about that. I have equine affair blocked out for 4 days, and that's probably the day we'll go.
Okay.
So I'm having.
What about the 14th? Carl, can you do the 14th? Nancy, can you do the 14th, or is that out too?
That's a
So I just realized, as I was just thinking about it, I have to house sit. My daughter's going to Hawaii from the 6th to the 15th. And I am house sitting and pet sitting for her, so I won't be able to go. I won't be able to do
You're
anything.
not going to Hawaii?
I was just there in June and I'm going next May. So, no. But,
life.
so I can't do
What
either.
about a later date, like the 20th, which is a Saturday?
Why don't you guys go?
Well, hang on. I'm trying to find a date when actually all 7 of us can go.
I can do the 20th.
It's close to Thanksgiving, isn't it?
It's
Yeah,
but
the following
only
week.
3 hours because of Thanksgiving.
It's a
20th?
Saturday, right?
Saturday?
It's a Saturday before Thanksgiving.
Sorry?
It's a Saturday before Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Right, but it's not the Saturday after Thanksgiving,
Right,
which would be a
right,
problem.
right.
Usually that's not a problem.
As far as I know.
Unless it is for
I
you.
can do it.
20th would work?
20th will work.
Jeff?
Yeah,
Gary?
I can make the 20th work.
I don't know, and again, I appreciate Wayne's impatience with the idea of like further process, but I just don't, I just feel like, this is kind of where the pedal hits the metal, like seeing like what issues we're actually looking at,
Yep.
But what is our focus going to be? What are we going to actually do?
What's the?
Are we just simply going to show Jeff the properties? I mean, what is the reason for, I hear you, I understand and familiarize Jeff, I get it. But beyond that,
I think it would be, an example would be obviously 37 Interlaken, but also Stone Ridge. I think if we go into that development with Jeff, we can talk about how it differs and how it could be made better under the new bylaw, assuming it can.
I haven't even been there, and
I haven't either. I have a drawing of it or a map of it from one of those monthly real estate books. And it doesn't look good to me, but, because it doesn't look like there's any open space that's preserved at all. It's
I'm
all
sorry,
taken
Bill,
up.
which do you have a drawing of?
Stone Ridge, Campion Farms.
Oh, okay.
I should bring it to a meeting. I keep forgetting. But I think that's the kind of thing that if we go there together with Jeff, we can talk about what's good about this and what's not so good from the perspective of how it could have been developed under this bylaw.
and you think we can have an intelligent conversation about that without like property, like a plan of that property? And more specifics in what that thing was before it was developed?
I think so. All you need is the, which is easy to get online. All you need is the outline of the property. And it shows the division of the properties and, you can see the site. And then, I'd be interested to hear what would have been done differently on that particular subdivision.
Is that realistic, Jeff?
It is, and one thing I could do, and I've done this for many times,
Always,
is if you have a place like Campion Farm, Stone Ridge, that has been developed conventionally under your existing bylaws, if I had some mapped information, a little bit of information about that property, I could redesign it according to the proposed bylaw, and you could see the difference.
I would like to see that.
That would be interesting.
37 Interlaken then.
We still haven't really, well, actually, yes, Jeff did give us the numbers.
Yeah, but I'd like to see it.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
I mean, the way to do that with NHRPZ is, you know, that's principally a zoning bylaw that affects subdivisions. So if you have a conventional subdivision in town that's done previously, then that would be appropriate to apply the NHRPZ to. And you know, I would have to make a bunch of educated guesses, but you'd see what that place would look like under the new bylaw with the numbers and the formulas that you have in the draft.
I mean, I think, I'm assuming, and I don't know what's available online and from various government sources, that we could do that for 37 Interlake and Stone Ridge or Campion Farms. I'm not sure about the others.
37 Interlaken is complicated because that's not really a subdivision, I don't think. And it's got a mixture of uses.
That was a cottage era.
Yeah.
It was an attempt to shoehorn itself into the cottage era estate bylaw.
Right, right. That one would be difficult. What I could do with 37 Interlaken is compare it with the numbers that are in the CEE bylaw now to see if the amount of development that they propose would be allowed under the draft that you have before you. That might be interesting to know.
Yeah.
Add up all the residential units that they proposed and see if it complies with what you have in the draft.
Yeah,
And you just sent us a new, I mean, this is the most recent draft I just got here, like from, of the CED. Okay.
It should have a date of 3/19/21.
Yep, that's it. Okay.
And that's a draft as it existed when I was sort of called off
Right.
from working on that. And it was done then as a section H on the NHRPZ bylaw, you know, the tail end of that. So we just took it off.
I'm sorry, Jeff, did you say the one that Jennifer sent around is where you left off?
It got pulled off.
That, you know, at that point, I was taking my instruction from Christine, and she said to stop working on it and pull it out of the other bylaw. So I did, and this is where it sits.
so this has not been touched since that.
No.
Right,
Right.
that's what I understood. So if I may, I know we're getting tired of this topic, but if we want Jeff to visit, and I think we do generally, recognizing that there may be limits to how productive it could be, are we agreed that we'll do November 20th, Saturday? And if it's easier for you, we could start at 1 o'clock. I think you're right, Kate, maybe 3 to 4 hours max is all we would need.
Yes.
max.
We'll cut off.
Probably still go home in the dark, Jeff, but, so say start at 1 PM. And maybe you're right, Kate, that at our next meeting on November 2nd, we put this on the agenda and come up with the actual names of the spots that we want to drive through and what we want to accomplish in each one.
Yeah.
Drive through or walk through or both.
Well, I'm happy to work on some draft kind of list, you know, for that.
Yeah, I think we can all think about lists of properties we'd like to see. I'm sure we'll have a lot of overlap. But then we can finalize it on the 2nd. When do we have to publicize this open meeting, Jennifer? If it's going to be on the 20th, that's plenty of time.
2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, I just have to have it 48 hours. to post it.
Okay. Okay, so we're good in terms of November 2nd for a November 20th open meeting, extra open meeting. Does that make sense then? Are we
Yes.
agreed on a plan of
Concerned, yes.
approach? Okay.
So the 20th at, I'm sorry, I got distracted. The 20th at what time?
I said 1 o'clock. Is that easier for you?
That
That's
works.
good for you?
I'm putting it in my calendar.
Yep,
Okay.
I can get home to feed the horses and I'm all set.
All right.
Good.
I think we need to set a time, an end time.
Yeah, we, like 1 to 4? Does that make sense? We'll finish at 4, whether we've seen everything or not?
Will that get you home to feed, in time to feed the horses, Jeff?
They may have to wait, but that's fine.
Oh,
Is that
no.
okay?
Give them a little extra if you're late.
Yeah.
Yeah, say it's from Bill.
Jeff, I was at a party this weekend and it was in a barn right next to another barn where there were something like, I don't know, maybe 10 beautiful horses and they all had their heads out the window and they all had beautiful black faces with little white stars on their foreheads.
Hey, but honestly, I mean, Kate, how big is that property?
It's big.
It's big. There's a lot of it. I mean, it's not like anything's going to happen at the same time. If it were to, like, I mean, it's an interesting question.
Yeah, no, and it's owned by a developer.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
sounds like that should be on the list.
That's,
Who are we talking about? Can you mention a name or is it
I'd rather not.
classified?
Oralton
Okay,
Farm.
no, but I mean, it's all, I mean,
Yeah.
again, Jeff, it's all like, I mean, everything is, it's Stockbridge. Everything is within 20 minutes. So, you can see the whole shooting match quite quickly and I mean, I don't know, we can
Yeah.
talk. I mean, some things are much more pressing than others. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
well, what I'll do is when I get your list,
Yeah.
I'll make aerial photos of
Okay.
all of them. And, so in case we can't get in, we can at least see what it looks like from the air. And I'll try to get boundary lines and other things onto those. So that, and then I'll make some extras and hand them out.
Well, we have also really Jennifer was kind enough to share some of the regional planning maps in terms of conservation land and large parcels lately, and honestly, I think those are really fascinating and I don't know. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion.
Oh.
Okay. Patrick, did you have your hand up? You're muted.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna do a walk around, I live in a 1910 house. It's not very big, but it's across the street from Tanglewood. And I'm no expert, but my read of the current draft suggests that without any acreage requirements, I could come to the planning board and require and ask for a permit to open a bar or tavern. And in this town, we don't turn down a lot of special permits. I don't know if you guys have noticed. And I would hope that if you're going to walk around, you ask yourselves not only what can you build, but how do you protect our neighborhoods from what you shouldn't build? Because I don't think I should have permission to ask you guys to build a bar in this neighborhood across from Tanglewood, because I could probably make a lot of money doing it, but I'm not sure that's really what's right for the town.
Wait a minute, Patrick, you can't go opening up a bar. You're gonna have to combine land with me. I've got to make something off of this too.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just asking, because these are real questions based on the draft that I'm reading.
Okay, let me give you a real answer.
Yeah.
All right.
This Cottage Era estate is section H of the NHRPZ bylaw. That's where it was. So it links back to the requirements for the NHRPZ, and you have acreage minima there. whether it's 20, 40, 60, 80, I'm not sure what you're going to decide, but
Mhm.
there are minimums and they apply to this section H. So it doesn't need to state it in H because it's stated previously in the body of the bylaw that goes before it.
So you're saying if my dad had bought the 25 acres that Dave Rothstein gave to the town behind me, and which is now like abutting at Lily Pond, though I could have, because I know that there's a whole bunch of houses from 1850 to 1920 on 20 acres in this town that could be bars or taverns. Maybe not mine now because I only got 3.
You would have to have a cottage or estate, and that would
Estate?
have, or
What does that mean?
Oh, good grief.
well, what it means is that you have to go, according to this, you have to go and get a sign off from the historic commission that that's a property, that's your property, and it has to be a minimum size in order to be
Okay.
eligible even to apply for this.
And I don't think, Patrick, that anybody, I will speak for the board, and anybody who has a different view can contradict me. I don't believe anybody on this board wants to see bars in residential areas or nightclubs or even restaurants, standalone restaurants. I mean, I think we get it that there is a residential character to most of this town that needs to be preserved.
But that has not.
Bill, I
always
agree
been-
with.
And if that means amending or modifying elements of Jeff's draft, we should do that.
Good. That's good to hear, actually. Thank you, Bill.
Bill, good point. Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is important to hear because that's not what I've always heard at these planning board meetings. So I wouldn't make the assumption that is the case. And I think in order to reassure people, it should be written into the.
I mean, does anybody here have a different view that we should have bars in residential areas? Or nightclubs?
You gotta qualify that. You have to qualify that. You can't make a general statement like that and say, I don't want a bar anywhere in town other than in the business district. It's ridiculous. If we're gonna have the conversation about cottage area estate, it probably involves a restaurant. It probably involves a commercial establishment of some kind, probably a bar. So if you're gonna say that that is in a residential neighborhood and you're gonna disqualify it for that reason, okay, then I'm gonna say no. I can't be in agreement with that.
It's in this
It's
draft,
just a
it's
very
in there.
broad,
Yeah, in this draft, you can have a restaurant, you can have a,
I guess the point I was trying to make was indiscriminate development of that kind of business in this town is something that none of us want to see, I think. I mean, do you want to see bars in 20-acre plots of land? I don't.
that's not what this is about.
I recognize that 37 Interlaken was going to have a restaurant. I get
Well,
that.
Marie at one point said she wanted beauty salons to be able to, open up in these historic estates.
problem? What's wrong with a beauty salon in a place like that? I mean, if we're gonna really get into that conversation, because if you have, a resort type property, you're not gonna allow people to have a small business like that in there? I mean,
Well, it depends on the size of the property. I love going to the beauty salon, but I sure as heck don't want to live right next to one. And I
So
don't
what
think
about,
most
what
people
about,
in
The cottage estate era.
what about Cropello? They've got a restaurant, they've got a store. Would you have said before that, oh no, you can't have your hotel
I know,
because
we're
it's
getting off.
not the right property, that's in the residential neighborhood. You can't have a restaurant in there. You can't have a store in there because it's a residential neighborhood. That's.
You're
that's just
talking about 20-acre properties, and Cropello is
You're talking about
quite a bit
cottage
bigger than 20 acres.
Well, I thought we were talking about any properties in town. You don't want a bar anywhere in Stockbridge unless it's downtown.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I don't want to change the topic entirely, but I've been meaning to bring this up for a while. And, but the Stockbridge housing resilience report that just came out like a week ago is actually really interesting in terms of the poll that was done of Stockbridge residents in terms of their priorities. And the thing that struck me, and I'm not going to go on about it, but I do think we ought to, schedule a time to take a look at that. But the thing that struck me was the extent to which, Stockbridge residents really respect the limits that we have managed to create on having an actual town with boundaries around it that doesn't just like sprawl out into commercial whatever. So anyway, I'm just mentioning it, but I would love to talk about that at some point. Please.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say a little something about this draft? We didn't spend a ton of time on it. We stopped working on it in March. It was only like a few iterations. And I have to say, a lot of these uses are just carryovers from Joel's work. The tavern bar associated with a restaurant, I believe, is a carryover from Joel's draft.
So Jeff, if I may, Joel's draft was a carryover from the existing. It was Joel's draft was a carryover from the existing Cottage State bylaw that's on the books.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can understand how he would take some of that and use it.
Yeah.
We did eliminate at some point Great Estate Inn. There's a category of use called Great Estate Inn. So for some reason, we took that all out of there. That's all crossed out. But, all you have to do as a planning board, if someone doesn't like the idea of tavern bar associated with a restaurant, you say, I move that we strike tavern bar associated with a restaurant. You see if you get a second, and then you vote on it. You're a 7-member board, and I'll do whatever you vote. It's your town.
Yep. Okay, I think we've maybe beaten this to death for the time being. Although it was a useful conversation. I don't mean to imply that. We're not going to resolve this tonight is, I guess, what I mean. We need to address the Cottage Estate bylaw draft at a future meeting.
Did you get this?
Does anybody have other business to be brought up? Wayne? You have
I make a motion that we adjourn. Is that what you're looking for, Bill?
I think Wayne has a comment.
No.
Okay.
I just asked if.
Sure, if nobody has any other business, you've made a motion to adjourn?
I did. Yep.
Is there a
Did Denny
second?
want something?
Denny?
Denny also?
Any comments, questions, smart remarks? Okay. Is there a second? Somebody? I second. Will you call the roll, Jennifer, to adjourn?
Bill,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Marie,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Kate.
Hi.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jeff.